brain trainer. I help busy professionals train their brain for motivation, focus, and achievement. If you've been following my Lighten Up system, I help yo-yo dieters train their brain for lasting weight loss success. So in this piece of creating lasting weight loss success, there's really two areas we need to focus on. One is in understanding nutrition, how foods work in our body. And the second piece, even more importantly, is the mindset for following through on what we know we should do. So with these two pieces, slimming down to your ideal weight and maintaining it easily can be even more easy, more natural than maybe you've ever experienced before. So in the spirit of helping nutrition be fun and exciting, we are hosting the Healthiest Cookie Competition. You can visit the website for more details and entry forms. And in this video segment, I am going to talk about doctoring your recipes, how to change over what you add to your cookies to make your cookies healthier. In fact, we're looking for cookies so good you can eat them for breakfast. So, we're going to take this step by step in identifying some things you can change out in your cookie recipes, your brownie recipes, to make a healthier, more nutritious cookie. And of course, when I was growing up, my favorite character on Sesame Street was the Cookie Monster, because he could always eat cookies. So hopefully if you're making your cookies healthy enough, it's something that you can eat a little more often and enjoy it. So the first thing we're going to focus on here is the fats we put into cookies. Typically cookies call for a lot of butter, a lot of oil, and there are some oil choices that are better than others. Typically if you're baking, maybe you're baking with margarine. A lot of margarines have artificially hydrogenated oils, and this is something that we want to stay away from because it has negative effects on our body. So even better than a margarine, artificially hydrogenated oils, I promote butter. Butter is great, it's a little higher in the fat content, but if you're balancing it out with other things, butter is a better alternative. So if you want to cut out some of the oil in your some of the butter fat in your cookie recipe, you can actually use half of the butter, and then even better oil choice would be flaxseed oil. So one of the benefits with flaxseed oil is one of the few oils that has anti-inflammatory health effects. Most of the oils that we're getting currently tend to fall into two categories. And most of the oils that we get are actually the inflammatory oils. So if you can add more of the flaxseed oils, the omega-3s into your diet, that will also be a better health benefit. So if your cookie recipe calls for maybe a cup of butter, you can use 1 stick of butter, a half cup of butter, and then use the other piece, the other half cup, as an even healthier fat choice, which is the flaxseed oil. So that's one way. Now this is another alternative that you can use is coconut oil. Coconut oil has, it doesn't change its molecular structure at high levels of heat, so it does have other health benefits, and you can also visit the website where I do have some articles about health benefits of coconut. So one way you can change out the fat in a recipe straight across, so if it calls for a cup of butter, you could still use a cup of coconut oil, or you could also mix the two oils, the coconut oil and the flax oil as well. And the coconut oil has a very mild flavor, and it bakes really well, so that's a really good choice. Now if you want to cut out more of the fat in your cookie recipe, you can actually replace half of the fat with applesauce. The benefit of applesauce is, of course, it tastes good. It also adds more fiber to your recipe, and it can add a little more sweetener to your recipe and replace part of the fat content. So if you're using applesauce, you'll probably also want to cut back just a little bit on your sugar. Table sugar is the common one that we use as our sugar in cookies. There are some better alternatives. One that I really like is the agave syrup. It is an all-natural, low-glycemic sweetener, and it's actually sweeter than the table sugar that you use in cookies. So if you're cutting out the regular sugar or replacing with agave syrup, you can actually use about half of the amount that you would use for table sugar. So if the recipe calls for a cup of sugar, you can use a half a cup of agave syrup. Now something, if you are cutting back on the amount of sugar that you're eating, your taste buds will actually become more sensitive. And so some things that may have tasted normal to you will taste super sweet. So I like having the ability to cut back some of the sugar in the recipes that I make. Now here's something else on the market. This is a sugar replacement that you can also use. This is called stevia. Stevia is a plant that comes from South America, and the plant itself is really sweet. So there are different ways or different extracts, different forms of stevia. This one comes in little packets, stevia extract, and it is super sweet. So in replacing the sugar in a recipe, you might use 1 teaspoon of stevia for a whole cup of sugar. So if you're going to use stevia, I think another alternative based off of stevia is called Truvia, and it has a filler. So you can, with Truvia, you can do more of a straight across 1-to-1 ratio. But if you're using a stevia extract packet as a sugar replacement, there's going to be a lot of bulk in the cookie that you're not going to make up. So for instance, it calls for a cup of sugar and you use 1 or 2 packets of stevia. That's a whole cup of bulk that is gone from the recipe. So if you're doing that, you can make that up with, once again, applesauce. It's a good alternative. Okay, so now we've covered some of the fats, the sugars. Now if you're used to adding chocolate chips or something into your cookie, another good alternative is that you can add dried fruit. And I've got here dried cranberries. Of course, dried cranberries have a lot more extra sugar added, so they may not be one of the best alternatives, but any kind of chopped dried fruit. Apples, you can also use dates. It just adds another extra little flavor and sugar to your recipe. Now, something else, if you want to create more bulk in your recipes, so for instance, if you're using the applesauce or getting rid of more of the table sugar with stevia, you can add bulk to your recipe by adding coconut, shredded coconut. This one is a sweetened coconut, so you'll be able to find non-sweetened coconut in the bulk aisle. That's a good place to add. So the benefit of adding coconut to your recipe, of course, one is flavor and taste, but it can also add more fiber to your cookie content. So it makes it a little healthier. Now the flour in cookie recipes, of course you can do a healthier cookie recipe just by adding whole wheat flour. Some people don't like the taste of whole wheat flour, so there are some other flour alternatives. For myself, I'm gluten-free, and so I highly recommend going gluten-free. It's fairly easy once you get the hang of it. And if you want to make a gluten-free cookie, which is one of the categories in our Healthiest Cookie Competition, you can use brown rice flour or even white rice flour as a straight across ratio. So if it calls for 1.5 cups of wheat flour, you can use 1.5 cups of brown rice flour. And I actually like the brown rice flour a little better. I think it's ground a little finer, so there isn't, sometimes in the flours, there's a little extra texture that you notice, whereas the Bob's Red Mill brown rice flour doesn't have that. So this is a good alternative for going gluten-free. And now here's something to think about. In most of the gluten-free alternatives that we have, they are made with rice or brown rice in this case, and And because of the rice content is typically higher glycemic, it's going to make a higher glycemic cookie. So something else that you might do, there are several different flours that you can play around with that are also gluten-free, but something that I like to do is add almond meal. This is just almond meal. It's just ground almonds. You can get it at Trader Joe's or a health food store. And I like to cut out about half of the flour content with half of the almond meal. So the benefits of the almond meal, it will add a little more fiber to your cookie. It will also lower the glycemic index if you're using like a high glycemic flour, like rice flour. And it also adds some other nutrients, including all of the goodness of almonds. So hopefully, now this is by no means an exhaustive list. There are a lot of other sweeteners, other flours, other fiber things that you could add, including coconut flour, which is a fun one to play around with. So I definitely suggest taking some time to play around in the kitchen, see what you can come up with, and of course doing some taste testing before you submit your recipe. You can submit your recipes online the week before the event. Go to www.lighten-up.me/community, C is capitalized, .html. And on the website you'll find entry forms, you'll find where we are meeting and how to submit your recipe for several fabulous prizes, which include personal training, European facial massages, haircuts, and more. So visit the website. You can also get a cheat sheet here for some of the things to change out in recipes. And we hope to be seeing you at the Healthiest Cookie Competition. Thanks. I'm Holly Stokes, the Brain Trainer.